Community Forum is sponsored by the Easton Grange 196 and a friend of Yardley Wood Rink and the Easton Lions Club.
There's a storm across the valley, the clouds are rolling in. The afternoon is heavy on your shoulders. There's a truck out on the 4-lane, a mile or more away. The whining of his wheels just makes it colder.
Welcome to Community Forum. My name is Priscilla Almquist-Olsen, your host, and today is Monday, February 5th, 2024. And it's with a great deal of pleasure that I welcome a local resident, author, and former journalist, broadcast and paper, to our show today, Lisa Braxton. Thank you, Lisa, for joining me. And I'm looking at this book called The Talking Drum, and it is fascinating. I read the little blurb and summary of the book, and it's really interesting. But first, before we get into the book, tell me a little bit about your background, where you grew up and so forth.
I grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut in the 60s and 70s. And my mom and dad were from Virginia. And they grew up during Jim Crow, during segregation. And when they got married, they wanted to get away from all that because they knew that with just a high school education, they couldn't do but so much because of discrimination. So they had their wedding ceremony in my great-grandmother's parlor, and they immediately got a ride with my uncle, who drove them directly to Bridgeport, where my dad's sisters had already moved in the 1940s. This is 1955. I think my parents got married. And so a few years later, they had me and my sister. And so we grew up, it was fun. It was fun. I went to Girl Scout camp. I was a Girl Scout, went to a Lutheran elementary school. And Dad, in later years, opened up a clothing store. And he and Mom ran the clothing store together. And in many ways, my growing up and watching Mom and Dad operate this men's high fashion clothing store helped inspire some parts of the Talking Drum.
I see. And we take all parts of our background, don't we? Little bits and pieces, and incorporate them into our creative works.
Yes, we do. Since childhood, I wanted to write a novel. I was a bookworm. I was very painfully shy. And my mom would say to me, Lisa, it's nice out. Why don't you go out and play with the other kids in the neighborhood? Why don't you just go out and get some fresh air? And I would say, no, Mommy, I want to read my Nancy Drew mystery. I don't want to go out. I want to just enjoy my books, and I want to be a novelist someday. I was maybe 7 or 8 when I said this, and she says, well, that's nice, Lisa, but you can't earn a living writing books. And that's why I went into journalism. I thought, well, if I can learn how to write and deal with editors and deadlines and having my work torn apart and put back together, I can maybe one day write a book. So that took me on my journey into journalism.
I see. Wow. And so where did you go to school?
I went to Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia. Then I went to Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois for a master's degree in journalism with an emphasis in broadcasting. And then finally, what I found out was that with all the journalism work I was doing, I didn't have the energy or the time to really write creatively after I got off my shift from going out and chasing after different stories. So once I left full-time journalism, I went to work for a nonprofit in Quincy, Massachusetts. I began to really get serious about writing short stories and essays. I went to Southern New Hampshire University for a master's in creative writing. And they have what they call a low residency program. Those are really big these days because you can go through these programs and still keep your full-time job if you need to. And you'll spend maybe 2 weeks or a month broken up within the semesters on the campus or wherever the cohort meets and do intense workshops and trainings to write. And then after that, you go back to your home and you write what you're writing with the guidance of your professor. And every couple of weeks or week or so, you pass in 40 pages and they train you. They tell you, well, if you want to write a novel, you've got to give up something. You can't watch a lot of television or whatever it is. So I really gave up television. And within 2 years to graduate, you have to produce a whole manuscript to graduate. And I did. And I kept working on it, and after some time, it became the talking drum.
Oh my goodness. So in a way you were forced into writing this just by the curriculum and the requirements of the master's degree.
Yes, after agreeing to go to school, after being admitted to the school and paying my, I won't say how much money it cost to for the tuition, I was going to write this book. And my biggest dream was, my biggest inspiration was my mom and dad, because as I mentioned, I told my mother I wanted to become a novelist back when I was 7 or 8 years old or so. And I said, I want to get this book finished before they pass away, while they're still alive to see it and celebrate. And that did happen. This book came out in 2020. And at that point, my mother was pretty sick with cancer. My father had early stage dementia, although we didn't know that. We thought, why is he parking the car in front of City Hall on the lawn? Weird stuff like that. You know, it's like, why is he doing this? And we would, because he was our dad, my sister and I did not put the pieces together. We were just kind of like, that's kind of odd, but we don't understand why. They were both here long enough to see my book published, and they were both very proud of me.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes.
You were very fortunate.
Yes.
Very fortunate.
Yes.
So let's, I know you have picked out a point in the book which is engaging, inspiring, and very interesting and intriguing. So let's hear it.
Okay, I'll just set this up. My my parents, when they had this clothing store, eventually was plowed over for an urban redevelopment project. And the neighborhood was totally changed where they had the store. In my book, the two main characters, they are operating a protest militant bookstore in the 70s, hoping to benefit from a civic center that's going to come in and take over an immigrant neighborhood. So this excerpt is about an immigrant couple, Omar Basari and his wife, Natalie. And he doesn't believe that their neighborhood will be taken, and she does, because she's an American and he is not, and they have their conflicts. So I'll just read a little bit about this couple and what they're dealing with. Omar Basari read the notice that his wife, Natalie, held inches from his nose. The Basaris had to pay 3 months back rent by the end of the month, including late fees, or be evicted. Il est un idiot, Omar muttered as he returned his attention to the peanut paste he had cooking on the stove. Fullerton does not care a fig about us. Natalie flung the notice, along with the rest of the day's mail and her canvas book bag, onto the kitchen counter. An accounting textbook, the Bellport Gazette, and some sheet music slid out. She pulled at the sleeves of her goose-down jacket and hung it on a hook in the hallway. I knew a rent strike was a bad idea, she fumed. Why did you listen to those people? The Basaris rented a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in the Commonwealth Arms, a pre-World War I building on King Street in the heart of Petite Africa, owned by white businessman James Fullerton. They'd moved there 6 months ago when a fire burned down their 3-story rooming house. Omar's uncle Mustafa had found them their first apartment a year and a half ago when the couple moved to town after they both dropped out of Howard University in Washington, D.C. After the fire, Mustafa stepped in again, negotiating a reduced price from Fullerton for the couple to live at the Commonwealth Arms. This allowed Omar to cover most of the household expenses with the $30 to $40 a week he averaged from his drumming performances. Natalie was studying to be an accountant, but dreamed of acting in theater and film. She had white classmates at Bellport College who got experience and some extra money doing bit parts in TV commercials. But casting companies rarely chose black performers, so she settled for jobs doing voiceovers and jingles for radio. She barely made enough to pay for her college courses and private voice lessons. Not much was left over for anything else. The Commonwealth Arms was in worse shape than the other building they lived in. The plumbing backed up, the heat oil worked off and on. To Omar, the building's problems were minor inconveniences. Growing up in Senegal, he knew nothing of utilities, landlords, rent, or groceries. He spent his childhood in the family care, a compound of mud huts with thatched roofs. There was no plumbing, running water, or electricity. Pit toilets were kept at the far end of the care. At sundown, villagers lit paraffin lamps or candles, or sat in the dark and told fables. Once Omar got workers to fix the boiler, but within days it broke down again. He went into Liberty Hill and bought fan heaters for the apartment. Natalie had to heat water on the electric stove for bath water. She complained that they weren't living much better than the villagers in his community. Then one night, the elevator broke. Tenants got stuck between floors for hours. Natalie was forced to haul her books and groceries up 6 flights. All the tenants were fed up with the conditions. One night they met in the stairwell to vent about the building's problems. They decided on a rent strike. They would not pay Fullerton until repairs were made. Natalie saw the strike as a waste of time. She thought there was no way Fullerton would budge and that she and Omar should simply pack up and move. Declaring, "The jungle is stronger than the elephant," Omar overruled his wife. Today, all the tenants found eviction notices taped to their doors.
Wow.
So that's the tension that is caused by the powers that be, and I wanted to express that sometimes the government decides to do gentrification or urban redevelopment, they approve that. And what about the people who are affected by that? How does it affect their life, their relationships, their bank accounts, their futures? And those are the kinds of things that this book goes into.
And that's a reflection of what your parents went through.
Yes, yes.
And so you're bringing all that up, and no wonder they were very proud of you.
Yes, yes. They and there are some parts my mother read when it was still a manuscript, and she was saying, well, I didn't know that you knew that I wanted to go to law school and that I had applied. And I said, well, I didn't know that, but there's some parallels that are in the book that I didn't know about that were actually were lived out by my parents.
I see. Yeah, of course. We are our children's. We are our parents' children, and we reflect that not just in what we write, but how we think and how we express ourselves to in the world. So wonderful. And tell me, this is obviously the first book you've written. It's not the last. So what do you have in mind for the future?
I was blessed to have mom and dad until they were both in their 80s. And it was tough, but it was a beautiful thing because my sister and I were both able to be with mom and dad as I took their last breath. We were there with them for months or days before that, right there by their side. And I've been writing essays about that experience, and I've been writing quite a bit. It's been therapeutic, but also I've written enough that I have now a collection. It's a memoir in essays that is being published in May. And it's called Dancing Between the Raindrops, A Daughter's Memoir of Love and Loss, hoping that people who read that, who are also grieving, will find some parallels. There's some parts of it, my editor said that some parts of the book she cried, some parts she laughed her head off because there's some funny things that happen, like with Dad driving up onto the lawn of City Hall and other wacky things that happen. But some of it a lot of it has to do with, mom and dad from the South. They come up and they work in the factories, and they leave the factories and they work their way up to becoming prominent citizens of Bridgeport and being proud of mom and dad and being there once things fell off the cliff, once you knew that they were really, really sick and I had to come home. And we still had some lovely, beautiful moments, even in their sickness, even in their sick beds. We were able to have fun with mom and dad. And I expressed that in the book, and hopefully people will enjoy that.
Yeah, so you cheered them as much as you gave them solace.
Yes.
And part of the solace was through humor.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And so I know that you have written short stories, and they've been accepted in different compilations. We're going to post those books at the end of the show so that readers can see what they are and go on Amazon. I'm sure they're all on Amazon, right?
They are.
And The Talking Drum, though, this is a book that has won many awards. And can you describe those awards?
Independent Publishers Award. So there are awards out there for writers who are being published by independent presses. My press is Inanna Publications in Toronto, which is a feminist press. So I guess the ideal that we all have, let's say someone who wants to go into acting, wants to go to Hollywood, somebody who writes a book, wants to get with one of the top 4 publishers. And for most of us, that does not happen. And so I was able to find the one publisher who said, yes, we'll publish your book, is an independent publisher. So they have awards for those independent publishers. I also sent my book to the National Association of Black Journalists, and I won an award through that for this book. And also Shelf Unbound is a magazine for which is for independent books, and I was the top #1 winner for that year. So things have worked out very well for me in the book. An International Book Awards finalist, And it's a lovely thing, and my hope is that if one person is touched by my story, then I've accomplished what I wanted to. I would love to see my book in Barnes & Noble. I'd love to see it as a #1 book on the New York Times bestseller list, but it doesn't have to be. If one person reads this, and several people have said, I really enjoyed your book, I got a lot out of it, that's the accomplishment. I'm a success. This has been successful in that respect.
Now, is it available on Amazon?
It is available on Amazon, yes.
Of course. And if you look at the book, you can see these awards, all these golden circles are awards that Lisa Braxton has received from this work, which is unique, engaging, and obviously the quality is excellent, or she wouldn't have gotten these marvelous awards. So the talking drum, and give us a little hint as to why the drum is talking and what's it talking about.
Well,
we have a drum right here.
I do have a drum right here. It means several different things. One of the main characters, Malachi, he's calling his bookstore / arts and cultural center the Talking Drum Bookstore and Cultural Center, because he's harkening back to Africa, where in villages there was a time, and it may still happen today, where drumming happens. Their drummers will let you know what's going on, or that we come to say hello, or we're having a ceremony, a rites of passage, a wedding, or a christening, and we come with peace. And the literal talking drum is a drum that one of my characters, Omar, who I read about just now, his best friend, who's also his frenemy, Kadim, plays the talking drum, where he's a very well-built, muscular man, and he takes his talking drum, and you put the drum under your arm, and you have a mallet, and you hit it, and it sounds like it's talking. So with Kadim, when he plays his talking drum, the women swoon, they just love it, and Omar, my main character, gets jealous of that attention. But the talking drum plays two roles. It's communicating with the masses of this fictional city, and also it's the literal drum that his friend, who he can't really stand most of the time, but the guy drives a taxi, so that's his way of getting around places, so he has to deal with them. There's a little literal talking drum.
I see. Interesting. Yeah. And you must have really had fun doing this.
I had fun doing this. I also had fun learning how to play the drums. I took lessons on how to play the djembe. This is a miniature. It's an actual real djembe, but I learned how to play the one that's like this tall, and took lessons and played very terribly. And I also learned to appreciate the drum. I was very naive. I thought that, well, how hard could drumming be? You don't have to deal with notes. Like when I took piano as a child, there are no notes involved. All you have to do is pat, pat, pat. No. It's very intricate, and there are all kinds of patterns that you can play, and you can play them poorly too. And you've got to use your palms. You're using this, and also tightening up with the strings to get a certain pitch. There's a whole lot to it, and I've learned to appreciate drumming.
Now, we have had the Rose Conservatory on our shows. I'm sure you're familiar with them. And they have, we invited them to my church, the Lutheran church here in town, sponsors them. And every time we sing a hymn that's spiritual, we have a rose on the altar, and we invite people to donate into special little envelopes in the pews for the Rose Conservatory. And they are wonderful. And can they drum? And when all of them are drumming, it is so deafening, but fabulous and really wonderful. And they have appeared at the festival of band festival at the end of our concert series in September, and they are just intriguing. They're now learning violin. The leader of that group is teaching them to sing, and it's just wonderful.
I've heard them. I've heard them. It was last year in Brockton, the year before last, Brockton Black History Month, and those young people are excellent. They're excellent, and I was thinking I would love to take drumming, to learn more drumming with them. I haven't looked into it, or the instructor does lessons with adults too, I understand. But I would like to at some point, when I have a few minutes of time, when I'm done with the next book, maybe talk to them and take some lessons.
And we do have a local East person who is a wonderful musician, She plays guitar, mandolin, ukulele. She teaches all of those instruments, but she also has a drumming course. And that has also, we've had it at our church, the Lutheran Church on Lincoln Street. Yeah, it's wonderful. And the kids are so, they're here we have 24 kids, and they're all beating in synchrony with each other. I mean, that to me is just magnificent. And the kids range from ages 7 to 11 or 12. I mean, you know, and some of them are tiny, and they're right there with the rhythm. Yeah. So tell me, what have been your challenges as a writer?
A few challenges. I work full time, which is a major challenge. So it's hard to carve out the time. And also, a big challenge that a lot of us writers face is that once we've written a book, we have to go out there and we have to market it. So we're not spending time in the chair writing. We're spending time going out and telling the public about our book. We're on social media. We're producing newsletters to let people know about the book. So I would say, because you have to, it's not like you can just expect your publisher to do all of your publicity and marketing. So you have to get out there and really let people know about the book. That is a big challenge. And it's easier to think about writing and not do anything. It's just easier just not to do anything, and I'll get back to it, procrastinate. And that's hard too. But I think if you have a group, I have 2 other writers who we meet up every 3 weeks or so on Zoom, and it's like having an accountability partner. That does help, because you have to show something that you've written. So that forces me to go ahead and work on something. So right now I'm working on a novel, but I've been working on it for some years now, off and on when things have been happening, but I need to sit down and really work on it, and I need to find the time to do that.
Now, when you write a novel, do you first write a summary outline, or, as my son, the film producer, says, a treatment? Do you do that so that it's your guide when you're writing the novel itself?
All I can say is, with the Talking Drum, under the guidance of my professors, I wrote a bio of each character. I knew I wanted to have urban redevelopment in it. I knew I wanted to have some fires in it. I knew that. So with those elements, I just worked on it with the bio. I had to have a bio for each character, so they would keep acting throughout the book like they were supposed to, and not flip their personality into something else. Now with the new one, I'm still just thinking about it and making notes here and there. Some people do that. Some people outline, some people by the seat of their pants. So for me, it's like making ground beef. It's like grinding up ground beef. It looks disgusting when you're doing it, but at the end it looks good. So it's just a mishmash of, we're all different. I just do a mishmash of taking notes here and there.
It's a good word, mishmash.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And do you often write, when you have a character, do you think about what the character might say? And you know, you could be going to bed, and then suddenly you think of a great line for that character, and then you must have a notebook or paper next to your bed, and you write things down.
I do. I have, it's a big mess. I have my nightstand, and I have books, and I have notebooks, and I have magazines and books here. And sometimes it's not so much what the character will say, but what the characters will do, that I make notes, and I might take one of the books I'm reading, and I think they'll do that, and that, you know, and my character will do the same things. I've got, with the magic marker, just circling different things here and there and keeping them in a pile until I'm ready to actually write things out.
So you do get ideas from other books?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My son also, he watches, multitudinous movies all the time, and he gets a scene here and there, and he says, "Oh, that would go really well in my screenplay." And,
because when I was in grad school, our instructors said, take a look at other books that are like what you're writing about, and just see how they approached, their first page, how they get the reader into the story. So they said, look at how other people do theirs, other writers write theirs, and then use that to inspire how you're going to approach it.
And we call that a hook, right?
Yes.
How we hook the reader.
Right. And how you keep them hooked throughout.
Keep them hooked. Right. So important. Now, do you have a family?
I have my husband. And I have a stepdaughter, and I have a Pembroke Welsh Corgi named Regina. I mention her because I think Regina is much more well known than I am, and when I walk her over at Governor Ames Park, or at Borderland State Park. Everybody knows Regina.
Is she, and is she
She's the queen's dog.
I was just going to say, she's the queen's, the
Yes.
queen, Regina.
Yes, she
meaning
knows. I
queen.
mean, she loves people more than dogs. Any person, any human creature she sees, her ears go down. She wants to say hi. But my dog that's our baby, our baby together. You know, my husband was married previously and has a daughter. She's just got married. She's about 27. And yeah, so my family is my husband and Regina and me. But she's more. I'll go walk her in our area, in our neighborhood, and people will say, "Hi, Regina. Hi, Lisa." So I come second. And I'm fine with that.
And you know, it's wonderful when we walk our dogs because we meet so many wonderful people. And people with dogs we're not afraid of people with dogs. We're friendly with them.
Right,
We feel
yes.
obligated to stop and say hello and check it out.
If your dog is talking to their dog, what can you do? You've got to say something friendly.
Right. So have you gotten inspiration from Regina for your writing?
I have, yes. I also write for Cognoscenti. It's a WBUR publication online. And I wrote about how at my other complex, having Regina opened doors for us because before then, people didn't talk to us at all. In fact, they kind of ran away from us. We were the only African American couple in our condo complex, and people who were kind of like my husband would get out of his car and people are just going to get away from him, you know, hurry up into their building. And the same people, once we got Regina, "Hi, how are you doing?" And that really made a big difference. So I have written about, she has inspired my writing, and I've written about her.
Well, I'm surprised to hear that in Easton.
No, this was in Weymouth.
Oh,
It wasn't-
okay.
Oh, no, it wasn't at Easton.
Okay. Oh, good. That's funny. Yeah. Well, we don't want to give bad name to Weymouth too, because
No, it was just that condo complex.
Yeah. So now, how long have you lived in Easton?
Since June of 2022.
I see. So a year and a half or so?
Am I what?
Is that a year and a half?
Yes.
Yes. And so what do you like about Easton? And has it inspired you with little vignettes in your writing?
I like the pastoral nature of it. I like that I can drive around it and I can tell that this was farmland, a lot of farmland at one point. And I've always been one who liked nature. I love nature. I love the greenery. I love walking around the different parks. And it's not so much inspiring my writing, but somehow I got asked to be on the Easton 300, the Easton Tricentennial Committee. And I'm going to be writing stories for the journal, the commemorative journal, and I'm going to be writing about some of the places, the historical stuff, the interesting street names, things like that. So my writing is going to be part of this tricentennial publication. That'll come out, I think 2026 it'll come out.
Yeah, and so many of our streets are named after residents who were either famous or unique or something. I live on Seaver Street, and there was a Seaver. Now, I should investigate that. I haven't done that, but you can do that.
Oh, yeah, Jenny Lind Street. I know Jenny Lind was huge in my hometown because P.T. Barnum brought her over, the Swedish Nightingale, to perform. And when I was growing up, and they may still do it now, but they always had every year for the Barnum Festival, they had they did the Jenny Lind contest, the singer who would sing before the crowds of Bridgeport. And I see that we have a Jenny Lind Street here, so I'm thinking, I want to find out why. Did she come here? Was it the ship? There was also a ship named after her.
Yes.
And I want to investigate that. And there's also a Deborah Lee Street. I don't know who Deborah Lee was, but there's a Deborah Lee Street. There's what is it? Something. I forget. There's a lot of different names that are very interesting.
Well, there was a Deborah who was in the Civil War. She fought. I think she disguised herself as a man.
I've heard about that.
Fought. But Jenny Lind, of course, is very close to my heart because my mother was born on Jenny Lind Street in the back room there at home. And she was I'm 100% Swedish, although DNA has produced that I'm part Norwegian and Danish and English, but I know the English that's the Vikings. Anyway, but so we call that area Swedeville. So it's Jenny Lind, it's Reynolds, William Street, Bridge Street, Baldwin, and on this side, shall we say, of the tracks. And then on the other side of Main Street, Linden, Holmes, all of those streets, that also was part of Swedeville.
Okay.
And so the Ameses, knowing that Swedes were good workers, actually sent emissaries to Sweden to entice them over.
Interesting.
But my grandfather was worked at the shovel works, of course, and he came from a west coast island called Orist. And if a member of Orist community didn't have a family or a friend here, they had my grandfather's name. So many people took the boat to Boston, not New York, got off, made their way to Easton, and my grandfather got them a job at the shovel works, got them housing, helped them become American citizens, and actually started English classes too for them. And I've said this before, he was also on the first board of directors of the Bank of Easton. So even though he was a laborer, he was well respected. And anyway, but we're getting off but Jenny Lind Street, yeah, and we have Randall Street. That's another very important name of an Eastern person who is obviously written up in Chafin's 1881 book or 1886 book. And that was Reverend William Chafin. Have
Okay.
you seen that book at the Historical Society?
I have not.
Ooh, there's one for you to read.
Okay.
It's this thick, and it has everything that the history of Easton from its beginning in the 1600s all the way up to 1886. And then in 1973, there was a sequel by members of the Historical Society, Hazel Varela and others, Ed Hands, who put it together, and they continued the history from 1886 to 73. So it's time for a new one. Maybe that's something you could think about doing.
Well, I think that's going to be part of what this new souvenir journal is going to be about continuing that history.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, but that's an interesting thing. I think most of us, when we go, and Lincoln Street, I mean, that's not named for Abe. That's named for somebody whose name was Lincoln.
Okay.
Yeah, and so very interesting. Well, that's a wonderful contribution that you're going to make, and I look forward to reading all about it. I recorded veterans in the 300 Stories, 300 Years, segment. I recorded them, probably about 30 or 40 of the veterans in town. So it's getting exciting, and it's around the corner next year.
Just about, yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah. What other organizations have you checked out
In Easton?
in Easton?
Oh, well, not really. I'm very active with the YMCA, actually taking classes, exercising, and it's almost embarrassing, but it shouldn't. It's not. It's embarrassing to me. I'll walk into the Ames Free Library in the library and say, "Oh, hi, Lisa. How are you?" Because I'm always in there. I'm always in there. I owe them a lot of money because I take books out and I am not done with them and I continue reading them and they get overdue. But I'm a big person to hang out. I hang out at the library. I hang out at the YMCA. Those are my two big spots. And then also my church, which is it's literally 90 seconds from my home. It's on Foundry Street. I live at Foundry Depot.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's like right there. So those are my three hangout. The places I go to: my church.
Is that the
YMCA.
Fellowship?
The Fellowship.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, the library is a wonderful, wonderful institution. And I remember it as a kid. And we would walk up the front and go in the front door back then. And it was always very quiet. The librarian wouldn't allow anybody to talk, not even a whisper. And but that was good. We had a great opportunity to choose books from all different subjects, and it was amazing. And that library was so well stocked. You know, today it's incredible, but it was also from the very beginning. The Ames family saw to that. Yeah.
I've seen their pictures in the library. Yes.
And then many of us would go on occasion and occupy those little cubbies. You know, that main area with the concrete. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so some of my classmates actually engraved their initials on the wooden as you enter. You know,
And did you?
No. No, because I was a goody two-shoes.
Okay.
I was not allowed to do such dastardly things. Anyway, so tell me, you're really in a year and a half. You're at the Y. You're at the library. You've really settled in beautifully, and yet you do have a job that you go to
In Boston, I'm hybrid. We're hybrids. I work in Boston 2 days a week, and the other 3 days I'm here, and I work from home.
You work from home.
Yes.
Like most people are
Yes.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. So you must enjoy that. You have the 2 days where you can be with people that you enjoy, and you have the culture of the city, and then you can come back here and enjoy the peace and quiet. And
Yeah, I like the vibrancy of I work right by a block from South Station. I like the vibrancy of the city and all of that, but I also like being home and walking Regina, who helps me to become popular because she's so popular.
yeah. Now I want to introduce you too to the NRT, the Natural Resources Trust. They have great paths there too, and you'll meet new dog watchers.
Oh, the
dog walkers.
sheep's pasture?
Yes.
I've been over there too.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any parting words?
I just look forward to people reading my next book, and I also am hoping to perhaps, I know there's some writing groups at the library, maybe stopping in and doing some writing with them, because when you have a community of people who are doing what you want to do, that helps you to stay motivated. So I look forward to that as well.
Well, I think one of the things that you might want to investigate is having a book signing at the Queeset House. And somewhat sponsored.
I've done one with the Talking Drum, and I look forward to that with the new book. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Oh,
that's
you
a
have
great
done
idea.
one. Okay.
Yes, I did a talk, and I actually did a talk, and I had a PowerPoint showing Mom and Dad and how Bridgeport was in its heyday back in the late 1800s, and how things had changed and how things have been plowed over. So yes, I did do something there with that.
And you had a book signing of the Talking
The
Drum.
Talking Drum, yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry I missed it. Well, we could do it again.
Yes, and then with the next one also.
Yes, yeah. Do you have a title for the next one?
Dancing Between the Raindrops. So so having good times in between the sorrow, basically, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the compilation of different essays and short stories and things.
And it has photos of Mom and Dad and my sister and me when we were children and growing up, and my parents when they first got married, and all the way till there's a photo of Chris for my father's 89th birthday, and my sister and I have our Santa hats on, and Dad's in the wheelchair, and we're with him at the assisted living center. So it goes all the way up to there, and Mom and my mother and I had a pajama party when she was in hospice, and I have pictures of us in our pajamas, and we're having a good time, and so we found ways to make more memories up until the end.
Yes, wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, so that's quite a legacy that you've given them, your family. Wonderful. Lisa Braxton, author extraordinaire, author of The Talking Drum. You can look that up on Amazon. Thank you so much for joining me today and describing your incredible journey from 7 years of age till, well, we won't mention now.
We won't say.
No. But you certainly have been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to have you. You certainly have intrigued me, and hopefully you have intrigued the viewers at home so that you go out, buy this book, enjoy it, and be ready for the next one. Thank you, Lisa Braxton, for joining me today on Community Forum.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today, too. This is Priscilla Almquist-Olsen bidding you farewell, and until next time, be well.
Community Forum is sponsored by the Easton Grange 196 and a friend of Yardley Wood Rink and the Easton Lions Club.